We're surrounded by artificial intelligence, but some of the biggest, most incredible breakthroughs, they're not happening in some giant data center miles away. Nope, they're happening right in the palm of your hand, inside your car, even on your wrist. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the incredible shrinking act of AI. Just think about it for a second. What if your phone's translation app, or your car's navigation, or your smart camera could just think for itself, instantly, without ever having to connect to the cloud? Well, look, this isn't science fiction anymore. It's the reality of what we call on-device, or Edge AI. And this is exactly why it's such a game changer. You get instant, real-time responses, because there's zero lag from talking to a server halfway across the country. Your personal data, it stays on your device, which is a massive win for privacy. It works absolutely anywhere, even if you have 0 bars of signal. And, of course, it saves a ton on data usage. So we're seeing this shift happen everywhere. We're talking smart cameras that can recognize faces without sending a single frame of video to the cloud, or industrial robots that react in milliseconds to avoid an accident. The intelligence itself is moving out of that centralized cloud and right onto the edge, where the action is. Let's just put the two approaches side by side. Cloud AI, that's the old way, relies on these massive, power-hungry data centers and needs a constant internet connection. Edge AI, on the other hand, puts the brain right inside your local device. So it's a fundamental shift, right? From something that could be laggy and public to something that's instant and private. But this creates a huge challenge, and it's actually a really fun one to think about. How in the world do you take a powerful, complex AI model, let's call it an elephant, metaphorically speaking, and squeeze it into the tiny, resource-constrained hardware of an everyday device? That's the core engineering puzzle we're going to unpack right now. And believe me, the squeeze is real. These edge devices, they don't have the luxury of powerful server farms. They have really strict power budgets. They're often running on batteries. They have tiny amounts of memory to work with, and they can't afford to get too hot. And on top of all that, the hardware is incredibly diverse, from a tiny chip in a smartwatch to a sensor on a tractor. Just to put that memory constraint into perspective, look at this number. Some of the microcontrollers that engineers want to run AI on have less than 256 kilobytes of RAM. That is smaller than a single low-resolution photo you might have taken in the 90s. And you have to fit an entire AI brain in there. It's kind of nuts. So how on earth do they do it? Well, it's not magic, but it is pretty close. Engineers have developed this whole toolbox of brilliant techniques to put these massive AI models on a serious diet, slimming them down without losing their intelligence. Let's dive into how they work their magic. When you boil it all down, there are really two main ways to tackle this. The first approach is taking a big, pre-existing model and finding clever ways to shrink it down. The second is designing a model that's small and efficient from the very beginning. We're going to focus on the most important techniques, things like quantization, pruning, and something really cool called neural architecture search. Okay, first up is quantization. And honestly, the simplest way to think about this is just rounding numbers. An AI model's brain is made of numbers, usually super precise 32-bit numbers with lots of decimal places. Quantization just reduces that precision, say down to simple 8-bit whole numbers. It's like replacing 7.99987 with just 8. It's a little less precise, sure, but it is way, way smaller to store. And the results? They're absolutely staggering. For these really well-known models, just applying quantization shrinks their size by about 75%, right across the board. You see a nearly 180 megabyte model become less than 45 megabytes, and it barely affects its accuracy. So, and this is a crucial point, this one technique gets you most of the way there. It's huge. Next up, we have pruning. It turns out that most of these big neural networks are what you'd call over-parameterized, which is just a fancy way of saying they're built with way more connections than they actually need to do their job well. Pruning is just the process of finding and snipping away those unimportant or redundant connections. It's just like decluttering a messy room by getting rid of stuff you never use. And this isn't just, a simple snip here and there. This diagram shows you it's a whole field of study. For example, engineers can remove individual connections one by one, or they can take out entire blocks of the network all at once. Each of these branches represents a totally different strategy, and each has its own trade-offs. And then there's this really cool, kind of elegant idea, knowledge distillation. Here, you take a huge, powerful teacher AI, and you basically have it train a much smaller, nimbler student AI. The student learns to mimic what the teacher does,
capturing all its wisdom, but in a much more compact and efficient package.
But what if, instead of all this shrinking and squeezing, you could just design a small, super efficient model right from the very beginning? Well, that's the idea behind this second major strategy: automating the search for the perfect AI architecture.
Okay, this is where things get really, really interesting. It's called Neural Architecture Search, or NAS for short, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You use one AI to automatically design another AI. You give it a set of goals, like maximize accuracy, but keep it super fast and under 5 megabytes, and it goes off and explores thousands, maybe millions of possibilities to find the absolute best design. This whole process has a few key parts, which you can see laid out right here. First, you define the search space. Think of those as the Lego bricks the AI is allowed to play with. Then, you choose a search algorithm from the middle to explore all the combinations. And finally, you set your objectives on the right, like accuracy and speed, to judge how good each design it comes up with actually is. So, to break it down really simply, first, you tell the system what kinds of building blocks are allowed. Second, you pick a smart way to search through all the options without having to check every single one. And third, you test each potential design to see how well it actually performs against the goals you set. Okay, so we've seen how engineers can shrink these giant models and even use AI to design smarter ones from the ground up. Which brings us to the big question, right? Where is all this incredible technology actually taking us? Well, the future is looking even wilder. We're seeing the rise of tiny ML, which is all about putting AI on incredibly low-power devices that can run for years on a single tiny battery. We're developing AI that can automatically apply all these compression tricks to other models. And we're heading towards this hybrid world where your device intelligently decides for itself what to process locally and what to send up to the cloud. And that really leaves us with a final, pretty deep thought. All of this technical genius is making the devices in our pockets, in our homes, and in our cars, well, exponentially smarter and more autonomous. And the crucial question we're all going to have to answer is, as they get smarter, what decisions, big and small, are we going to be comfortable letting them make for us?